Hello everyone. So today I am going to show you Linux buffer overflow. It's a very simple buffer overflow, and it is not bypassing any of the protections in place. There are many protections that happen, but we will first look at a very simple Linux buffer overflow. So to start off, I am using Parrot OS, the security version of Parrot OS. So first things first, one of the things that we are going to do for this is write a C program and compile it in 32-bit. Now in Parrot I was not able to get 32-bit binaries compiled properly, so I had to use Docker. You can see here on my GitHub page, Parrot setup, I have a repo where I have given the instructions of how to compile this. I will also show you this, but just for the information that if you want to do this on Parrot, then you will have to basically first run a Docker to compile your binary. And then once you have done that, then we will also be using PEDA. If you have not heard about PEDA, then it is extension for GDB. If you just search for GDB PEDA, you will find this. So let me quickly search that. The first result in this is for GDB PEDA. Basically all you need to do is get this peda.py file and source it in your GDB init file, and then it gives you some nice features. We'll probably be not using a lot of them, but we will at least be using one or two of them. So the way we do it is GDB init file. In GDB init file I have a lot of other things, but you can see that in the first line I am sourcing the PEDA file and peda.py. This will give us some of the features that we are thinking of using. Now to get to how we do this, we will go to Parrot setup, YouTube, BOF. So this is all, this program and the solution and everything is also there in the GitHub page that I showed you just now, and we will be using the solution from there, or rather the problem from there. So first we will have a program which we can exploit. It is called as bof.c for buffer overflow. It's a very simple program which calls a function f and then prints a function called. In the function f, it defines an integer a and character buffer of 100, and then does a getus of buffer. Now getus is very dangerous function because it doesn't check the boundary, and in this program, as you can see, we are not checking the boundary anywhere. So this is where the problem lies. Now by default there are multiple things that the Linux kernel does, and then hence it becomes very difficult to exploit this without using anything. But I will show you how to get a root if there are no protections in place, and I will also show you how to check whether there are protections or not. But for the purpose of this demo, I am going to look at process kernel randomize va space. This is for ASLR, and by default in any of the latest versions of Linux distros you should see this value as 2, which basically means that ASLR is enabled. But we are going to disable ASLR with ASLR disable. This is basically just writing 0 into this randomize va space entry. So we can just copy paste this command and enter. It will ask me for my password. I can give my password, and now if I check this value again, I can see this that this value is now 0. If you are just wondering what this does, I can quickly show you what it does. So if I do LDD of BOF, I have already compiled this. I will show you how to compile it, but I already have compiled this. So when I want to check LDD of BOF, you can see that the value is for libc it is located at f7 db f000. If I keep doing it again and again, you will see that this doesn't change. Now if I enable ASLR by changing this to 2 again and doing a cat of this, I can see this now is 2. So if I do a LDD of BOF, you can see that the value is changing. Now the interesting thing is that it only changes the last 6 bits. This is the base address where the libc will be loaded. So the base address of libc will be changing when you have ASLR enabled, but the first 2 bytes of this is not changing. So this is just 6 bits of randomness that you have, 6 bytes of randomness that you have in the loading in the base address of libc. So it is very much possible to do a brute force of this if you have sufficient time in hand. But we are not going that path, so we will set this to 0 again and verify that this is 0. Now coming back to our program, as we saw, this is already there. I have bof.c, which is the C program that we are going to exploit today. Now for this to work, what I am going to do is I am just going to go into Docker images, and you can see that I have already downloaded IE386 Ubuntu. You can actually download Ubuntu also, it should not matter. But so now I am running Docker with docker run -rm-v. -v is for mounting some specific host file into my container, and I am mounting my current directory into the container at /mnt, and I want an interactive session and want to have bash running. Once this is done, it is not going to take time for me because I already have the image downloaded. But if you don't have the image downloaded, then it is going to download 64.8 MB of image and then start the container for you. Now once I am in the container, I can go into mount, and I can see that all my files that were there in the host are also present here. Now to use this for compiling my program, I will have to do apt update, it's just going to take a second, and then we can do apt install gcc and make. So once you install these two, you will be able to compile this. I am not going to do this because this is probably a few hundred megs that will be downloaded for installing these two. Once you have compiled it, you can come out and you will see that you will have the file bof. Now the file bof will be basically not SUID, but we want a SUID to simulate a case where you find the SUID binary and you want to get root from the SUID binary. So if I check it right now, it is owned by root and it has the SUID bit set. So how you do that is, let me chmod 755 bof. Let me first revert it back so that I can show you. Now if you look at it now, it is owned by root, but it is not SUID. So I can just do sudo ch mod. We can do +s, or I like octal notation better. We can do 4755 and then the name of the program. And now if I check this, this is now a SUID binary. Now that we have the SUID binary, we need to first see we first need to find out whether there is a buffer overflow here or not. Now we can simply run this program and it will ask for an input. I can give something here. It will show function called. We can keep increasing the length of the input that we are giving to this program, and see when the program will basically break. Now let's see, we will give a couple of times this, and we immediately see that there is a segmentation fault. This is a good news for us. Now we know there is a buffer overflow in this, and sanity check has not been done, and we can crash the program. Now, when we can crash the program, then definitely we can do a lot of things with the program, and this is what we are going to see today. So, how do we start? We will start with doing a GDB. Although this is owned by root and is SUID, but since we have execute permissions, we can run it under GDB. Only thing is, when you run it under GDB, you will not be able to get root under GDB, because GDB will be running with your username. So GDB can be used for identifying the various addresses that we are looking for, or basically analyzing the binary, but not really for getting the shell itself. So now we give gdb./bof, the name of the program that we are debugging, and we are in the GDB PEDA shell. We can run this, and as expected, it is waiting for me to give some input. I can give an input, and it basically prints that function called and then exits. This is so far so good. Now we want to crash this again, so I am going to run this again, and then we will give the same input that we had given earlier. And press enter. We can immediately see that the function has crashed, and because we have PEDA installed, it is also showing me all the registers when the program crashed and their corresponding values, and then the stack that is stack of the program when the program crashed. Now we know that we can crash it. We need to figure out if we can override the EIP. Now the reason we are doing with 32-bit binary first is that we don't have to worry about how to execute our code, and we can simply use any shellcode we wish to. The way 32-bit programs run any instruction is, it will go to the ESP address, which is this, and look at that address, and whatever it finds there is what it will try to execute. Now if I have a function call at the ESP address, then basically it will call that function, and then the layout of the stack will be the address of the function, then the exit address, and then the parameters for the function. That's how the layout of the address will be. But instead of calling a function, if I just have directly the instructions that I want to execute, that also I can do directly from the stack. Now the first criteria for doing that is ensuring that we do not have the stack protection in place. And how do we do that? This is where the makefile comes into picture. So I have created a makefile for this. If you do a make all in the container that I mentioned earlier, if you are on Kali, probably it should work without any issues if you install GCC multilib, but on Parrot it doesn't work. But we are saying that we don't want stack protector, and we don't want exe stack. We do want the stack to be executable with -z exe stack. This exe stack enables make sure that the stack is executable when we are building the binary. So let's go back into this BOF. There is a command in PEDA that is called checksec. There is also a checksec from Pound Tools, basically the Python module. You can use that as well, but if you don't want to use that, you can use it from PEDA. So if you give just checksec, it will show you the various settings that the program was compiled with. So as you can see, canary is disabled, 45 is disabled, NX or no execute is disabled, and then pi is enabled. This doesn't matter so much for us, and run row is full. So this is fine for us. These two are fine for us. Now ASLR we have disabled at the system level, so we don't have to worry about that anyway. So that means that all the productions are disabled for us in this environment, and we should be able to get a root shell on this if we are able to exploit it properly. So first thing is we need to figure out how we can write EIP. Now what we can do for that is we can just say pattern underscore create and the length that we want, let's say 300. So this will give me a unique cyclic pattern of 300 bytes length. Now I can use this, and when I run the program I just paste the cyclic pattern of 300 bytes and press enter. As expected, the program has crashed, and we can see that it is the EIP is overwritten with one of the patterns in the cyclic pattern, and there are these 4 bytes that have overwritten the EIP. Now we need to know the exact bytes which will override this EIP. When you are in PEDA, one of the beautiful things is that it already gives you so many functions that you don't have to really think about using external tools, right? So you can use pattern underscore search, and you don't even have to give the pattern that you are looking for. It will automatically look in the memory of the application for the pattern that you want to search for. And as you can see, it has immediately found out that the EIP is found at offset 116. Now this is a good news for us. So what we are going to do is we will open one more terminal here and increase the font. We can do Python -c print. We want A to be printed 116 times. So now we are just going to verify that whether we can whether we can override the EIP with the values that we want or not. So we are going to print A 116 times. Copy this and then run the program again. So this is where my EIP should start. So I will put a value of B. This is where my EIP should be overwritten, and then I can put a bunch of C's. Now ideally you want your buffer length to remain same that you have got your first crash with, just to ensure that you don't get a different crash. But since our program is so small and there's hardly anything else in the program, so it doesn't matter, and we can change the length of the buffer as long as it is beyond 116 bytes. We should be fine. So what I am doing here is we found that EIP was found at offset 116. So we wrote Python one-liner to print 116 times A, and then to that we added 4 B's, which is what we would expect to be written in EIP when the program crashes, and then we have a bunch of C's that should be lying around in the stack when the program crashes. Okay, so let's press enter here, and as expected we can see that the EIP is beautifully overwritten with bunch of 4 B's, and then we have the stack which points to C's. Now let's also look at VM map. VM map is basically the process memory map of the whole process as seen by the OS. Now here, as you can see, since we had given exec stack, the last one is the stack, and it is executable, which is also basically highlighted in red by PEDA. Okay, so the stack is executable here, which means that we can put anything in the stack, and we can expect it to work. Now since we have all this information now, we should be able to devise our exploit. So what I'm going to do is, again I'll go to my folder. We will create a a.py. What we want here is, I'll import struct here. I'll show you in a while why, but basically we want this. Then we need the offset, which is 116, which is what we found just now. Then we need the padding, which is basically bunch of A's multiplied by offset. Then we need the EIP, which is basically what we will put once we figure out where we want to jump in the stack. Now that we have found all this out, what we can do is basically write our shellcode somewhere in the stack, since it is executable and writable both. So we can write our shellcode somewhere and ensure that the EIP contains that address. So when the EIP contains that address, it will jump to that location, find our shellcode and execute it for us, right? So we can say stack address equals whatever that's in the EIP. Now let's examine the memory here. So to examine the memory, I can say x slash, let's say 40 bytes I want to examine. I will say ESP. ESP is the start of a stack in any 32-bit address, right? In 32 binary. So I am examining with x. I want to display 40 number of values, and I want to display them as hexadecimal values, and I want to display from $ESP. So as I can see, it shows all 43s. The ESP is at the C, where we had C. If I do minus 100, and let me also increase this to 140. So now I am displaying 140 hexadecimal values from ESP minus 100, and we can see that ESP minus 100, first we have that 41s that we had given, then we have the 442s, and then we have the 43s. But now, as we have just verified, the ESP is actually pointing to the 43s that we had in our buffer. So what we can do is we can put our shellcode just after the EIP. Shellcode equals this will be something, and then all we need to do is print padd padding plus EIP plus shellcode. Okay, this is what exactly we need. Now, just to be sure that we land into the shellcode correctly and not somewhere in between, we can always add a NOP sled. So we will add the NOP sled. NOP sled is nothing but /x90. This basically means a NOP in assembly language, at least for Intel. And then we will probably put 16 NOPs, just to be sure that when we jump from EIP, it lands into our shellcode properly. Okay, so I can say NOP sled here, and then I need a shellcode. Now for shellcode, there are various ways you can get a shellcode, but I'll show you one way that I prefer. So there is a site called as Shellstorm. If you search for just Shellstorm, you will come across this site shellstorm.org/shellcode. If you go to this site, let me increase the font. Okay. So if you go to this site shellstorm.org, you can see that it lists a lot of things here. We are basically interested in Intel. We can do Intel x86-64, that should be fine. So let's run this execve, or there is one more for yeah, let's go with this. This is the 27 bytes execute bin sh. This simply just does a exe bin sh. So we will copy this. So this is the shellcode. This is the shellcode that we want to execute. We will copy this and put it here. Now remember that this is basically Python 3, right? So we want everything to be in bytes. We'll put this here. Put B for all of these. Okay, so this is what we have now. Now let's save this. Python a.py. I have something. Okay. Okay. Now we are able to print this. Let's write it into a file called A and go back to our terminal where we had GDB running. Now I will run this and I will supply that A as my input to this, and let's see what happens. Okay, so when I run this, I can see that again my EIP is written with 42424141, and then I can again do that examine 40x $ESP. EIP. Let's look at our A. So I can use hex dump minus capital C A. Okay. So we have the 41s, then we have the 42s, and then we don't have the 90s. So I must have done some mistake here. The file is not proper. What did I miss? I think we don't need B here. Okay. I think this is a big problem. Okay, so finally we have this. We can again do a hex dump of this, and still it is not correct. It is putting a literal /x90. Okay. No. Anyway, so the you understood the idea, right? So we'll get into how to fix this. I have the program which can help to fix this. Now once we have done that, then we can basically put the shellcode in our program, and let me copy start.py to a.py. Okay. Okay. So now when we are overwriting the EIP, what we also want to see is that we convert it to Little Indian format. So the address that you have here like this will actually become something like this, right? So first you will have 24, then you will have D0, then you will have FF, and then you will have FF. Okay, so this is how it should be in the memory. So the final address that you want is basically this. That is what should go into your memory. Now to do this, you can do this manually by hand, but there are always chances that you will miss that. So what you can do is basically, let's go to Python 3, import struct. Struct is a module which allows you to do some modifications with your byte arrays and few other things like that, right? So I can say struct struct.pack, and first is the mode. I want less than capital I, and then the address. Let's assume this address. So I can give this address. Okay, and as you can see here, it is giving me /xff/xff/xd0, and then 24 translates to $. So it is giving me the address in the exact format as I wanted it. If I am using less than $I, less than and capital I. Now since we can do this, we can define this as a function now. Which is what I have done in this. I have defined a function p32 which takes a variable x and then just returns the same thing that we have done just now. Now the only difference here is that actually PawnTools already has a function for doing this, but if you do not have access to PawnTools, then you can use this. Now we will remove this shell code and we will use the shell code that we got just now. So this is the shell code that we want. If I copied it, okay, so this is the shell code that we just got. Now EIP, let's keep it as whatever it was, and then as we discussed, our payload will be first the padding, then the EIP, then the NOP/SLAT, and then the shell code, and then just to end it off, I am putting some padding in the end just to make the size back to 300 again. Okay, this is not required, but it's always a good idea to go with the same size as we found the payload for. And then we are doing a sys.stdout.buffer.write of payload. Now let's run this. Python a.py, write it to A. We again need to mention that this is byte array, so we will say B here. Okay, and then we can do a hex dump of this. Okay, now here you can see sorry, first we have the A's up to 116, then we have the B's, then we have the 90s, which basically translates to no ops, and then we have the shell code, which should be up to end of this, and then we have the C's which I am using at the as end padding. Now once we have that, we can run python a.py, pipe it through /buf. As we see, this basically gives a segmentation fault. Okay. Now let's go back to our GDB and let's print $esp. Now as we discussed, this ESP will always remain same because we have disabled ASLR. So now we can open a.py and go to EIP and say that this is P32 of the address that we just copied. And then execute it again. But still we find that it is doing a seg fault. Let's try to figure out why. Okay, so again we will generate this output, write it into A, go back to our GDB, run, provide this A as my input and execute. Okay. Now here we can see that suddenly we are seeing the stack with our 16 9-0s, but it is somewhere else and it is actually not in the right place and it has not come to our NOPS led. So let's try to understand what has happened. Let's quit out of this. Now if you know, there is a dmessage command. If you run dmessage, then it will show you the segmentation fault that has happened. This you can actually get it from your code dump as well. If you enable code dump and then use that, then that also will work. But if you look at dmessage, this is what we have got just now, and we can see that it is seg faulting at some place where the EIP was D09F. Let's open our a.py. So it went from D060 to somewhere and then it went up to D09F, and the stack pointer was D080 and not what we expected it to be. This is because we were running the program in debugger. So debugger used some space of memory and hence the memory address has changed. So let's try with this SP. So let's add, let's put this D080 here and then try to run this again. Okay, didn't work. We will have to probably add a few more bytes here. Let's see how many bytes we have here. So the SP contains this echo, this 98, and then we want it up to this, and then we have FF as well. We can see WC minus C, which is 129. And 120 basically 127 129. Okay, 129 divided by 3 is 43. So we need to add 43 to 80. Okay, so if you are confused, I am saying that the stack pointer is this and the stack contained this code, and we know that we have to ignore up to this point. So we took this and then counted how many characters were there. Now since this 3 make one character in the memory, so we divided it by 3, which is 43. Now let's do a calculator and change the mode to programming and hexadecimal, and then we want to add 80 plus 43, that will be C3. Okay, so hopefully if we change the last 2 bytes to C3, we should be around the knob slide. Okay, we got an illegal instruction, but again let's look at B message. I think we have to add 1 or 2 more because we landed into FF. This is still the old one. This time we didn't get a sec fault, so it is not showing us the code where it crashed. But I think we miscalculated it and we should add 1 or 2 more. Since we have a knob slide, so we can add a few more. Are we calculating it correctly? Okay. So our SP was this, and then we need to add 43 to it. D0 E3. It should be D0 E3. Okay, let's make our knob slide a little bigger. And then we can basically go back to this being C3 or earlier value. Okay, now we are back to this. Okay, now we are jumping into knob slide. Okay, let's run it in GDB again. Run. We'll give this A. Or do we have BinSH? Okay, BinSH is there. Okay, I am back. Sorry, I had to cut off just to check what was happening, and seems like the problem was with the cell code. So I figured that out, and now I will show you the only thing that I have changed right now is this. So I have just changed the cell code here. All other values, as you can see, remains the same. Now the shellcode that I am using right now is this, which is basically execve binsh, and this will basically execute a shell once we have overflown the buffer. So now now that we have done that, let's try and execute this and see what happens. So let me not jump ahead of myself. Now if I pass this, I can see that nothing happens, and this is expected because even if a cell is opened, the std in and std out for BOF are closed as soon as the Python a.py or BOF execution is completed. So we need a process which can keep the std out and std in open for us. So I'll just give a cat minus so that we can keep the std in and std out open. Now if you see, if I keep pressing enter, nothing happens, but if I give ls, I can see the file listing. I can give id minus a, but strangely I am still Amit AG. Now why does this happen? This happens because bin sh or any of these, at least dash and ash or gsh do not do that, but bash at least drops the privileges if it is not the real UID of the user. Okay, so one way to bypass that is running bash minus p, but passing parameters might be difficult. So what we can do is we will write a program which is realuids.c, which is basically just doing a set UID 0, set GID 0, and then running bin dash. Okay, now we will compile this. Again, to compile this, we will use makefile, which is basically gcc -o realuid and then realuid.c. Now we need to change our shell code. So we will again look at a.py. Now if we look at this, okay, so if we look at this, Python -c print let's copy it from here to here. Okay, so let me increase the size of the window. Okay, now okay, we will have to copy a few more bytes, I guess. Let's print the whole thing. If I take the whole string and print it, then I can see slash bin here and slash sh here. Just ignore the h for the time being, but slash bin slash sh. Now the reason we are seeing slash sh here is that we for every word that we are pushing in the stack, we need to have it 4 bytes aligned. So slash bin is one part, slash sh will be only 3, so we can add one more slash to ensure that it is 4 byte aligned. Okay, so what we are passing to execve is slash bin slash sh. Now we can basically modify it in such a way that we can try to run our real UID. So if you see wc -c dot slash real UID, if we give equal, okay, this is 10 characters and we want only 8, right? So what we can do is remove the last 2 characters of this. So I will copy this dot slash real UID to dot slash real UID and then remove this 2. So now if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it was calculating for the slash n. So we just need to remove 1. Okay, so this is the shell that we can execute. Now if I just execute it by itself, I can see that I get a shell, perfectly working shell. Now that we have verified it, I can go to a.py Now I know that 68 is slash, so I will remove this and then put slash 68 here. Okay, so this is slash s h and then 69, then 6e is slash, no, something is wrong, 2f is slash, okay, yeah, this is slash. Okay, so let me put it here, slash s h. Okay, then this is something that we have to ignore. Then this is slash bin, bin. Okay, so up to this. Okay, this is our slash bin slash sh. Now we can get rid of this. So now I have divided my shellcode into 3 parts, where the second part, except this slash 68, is my bin sh, slash bin slash sh. Okay, so what I want here is dot slash rea dot slash re real UI. Okay, so first 4 characters here, then the second part of the remaining name of the file, and then I will remove these spaces here, and we are done. Now we have replaced slash bin slash sh in the shellcode with dot slash real UI. Okay, so now let's again run this. And we did something. I have a space here. Okay, so as you can see, immediately we can identify that this is running real UID. As I can see, this is my shell. I can see ID minus a, and we are root. Okay, so this is how you can get root. There are other ways of also getting root, which is basically using other shells. So I will show you one more shell here. I remember the number is 216. So what this does is basically it runs set REUID 00 and then executes this, which basically means that we don't need to create our real UID, and it does the real UID on its own. I already have an example of this, which is already checked into the GitHub page also. I'll just check if the address is correct. No, address is D0A0. So I'll change this to D0A0, and then I can run python exploit.py /bof, and I need to give cat minus. Okay, so here as you can see, first he is doing cat /etc shadow, and then he is doing exit. These are the commands that he is executing, and before that he is setting up the stack and passing the parameters for execve and so on and so forth, right? So what I have done is I have made a small change where in exploit.py after etc shadow I am also running /real UID. I can as well run any shell here because the shellcode is already doing set REUID, so it will give me a shell anyways. Okay, so these all code and everything is already present in the GitHub page that I showed you earlier. I hope you like it. Thank you. And yes, sorry, before I end my video, I wanted to tell you guys that I have passed my CPE last week, and now I am CPE and LPT Master certified ethical hacker. Just wanted to tell you guys about this. I am very happy to have passed CPE and also get combo certification of LPT Master. Thank you all.